Bangkok, Thailand. Lumpinee Boxing Stadium. November 3, 1971. Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. The stadium breathes like a living thing. Not metaphorically, literally. The walls of Lumpinee absorb and release the heat of 1,200 people packed into a structure built for 900, and the result is an atmosphere that has its own temperature, its own humidity, its own particular pressure that you feel against your skin the moment you walk through the entrance gates and into the interior where the ring floats under 4 suspended lights in the center of everything like an altar that the entire building has been constructed to face. Muay Thai is not a sport in Thailand the way that boxing is a sport in America. It is older than that. It carries different weight. It exists inside the culture the way certain rivers exist inside a landscape, not as something imposed on the terrain, but as something that shaped the terrain, that has been running through it long enough that the land cannot be fully understood without understanding the river. The people who fill Lumpinee on fight nights understand this in their bodies before they understand it in their minds. They were raised inside this understanding the way children are raised inside a language, absorbing it before they have the vocabulary to describe what they have absorbed. Tonight is different from a normal fight night at Lumpinee in ways that the crowd registered before the first bout began. The way a crowd always registers when the ordinary texture of a familiar event has been altered by the presence of something that does not belong to the event's usual categories. The undercard fights have run. 4 of them, each legitimate, each producing the particular focused intensity that Muay Thai matchmaking at Lumpinee reliably produces. The crowd engaged with each bout on its own terms, tracking the exchanges with the educated attention of people who have watched this discipline long enough to read it the way a musician reads a score, not following the notes, but hearing the structure beneath them. But the attention in the building tonight has a different quality during the intervals. People talk differently between bouts. There are arguments running in multiple languages near the entrance gates and along the outer corridors and in the rows of wooden seats closest to the ring. Arguments that are not about the undercard fights. Arguments that are about what is scheduled to happen after them. Her name is Aranya Metharom. She is 23 years old, and she has been fighting professionally in Thailand since she was 17, which makes her professional record span 6 years of active competition in a discipline that does not forgive inexperience at any level, and least of all at the level where she competes. She has never lost, not officially, not in any bout governed by the rules and overseen by the officials of the Muay Thai establishment that recognizes her record as legitimate 41 fights. 41 victories, 11 by knockout, 9 by technical stoppage, the remainder by decision, and not the kind of split decisions that leave room for argument, but the kind of unanimous decisions that leave room only for the specific admiration reserved for performances that are complete. She is 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighs 118 pounds, and she moves inside the Muay Thai system with the fluency of someone who did not learn the discipline so much as grow into it, the way a tree grows into the shape of the space available to it. Every technique she executes is the product of 6 years of professional refinement applied to a foundation that was being laid before that, in the gyms of Chiang Mai where she began training at 11 years old, under a trainer named Suchart, who recognized something in her movement in the first week of her first session, and spent the next 6 years of his life developing what he recognized. The combination that defines her, the one that her opponents have seen coming and been unable to address for 41 consecutive fights, is built around a jab that creates the specific distance and angular relationship between 2 bodies that makes the following left teep unavoidable. The teep, the Muay Thai push kick, is not primarily a scoring technique in her hands. It is a control technique. It establishes where her opponent is in space, relative to where she needs them to be for what comes next. What comes next is a right high kick that travels along a path that the jab and the teep have conspired to leave open, a path that only exists because of the specific defensive responses that the jab and teep reliably produce. And by the time an opponent has processed that they have produced those responses, the right high kick has already arrived. 41 fighters have faced this combination. 41 fighters have been unable to resolve the problem it presents. Not because they did not see it coming, In the later rounds of her longer fights, her opponents always see it coming, but because seeing a problem and having the technical and physical resources to address it are two different things, and in the gap between them, Aranya Metharam has built her unbeaten record. The story of how Bruce Lee came to be in Bangkok in November 1971 has several versions, and the version that is most widely told within the Muay Thai community differs in its emphasis from the version told within the martial arts community, and both of those versions differ from what actually happened, which is not unusual for events that generate sufficient legend to require multiple tellings. What actually happened began in August, 2 months before the night in question. Bruce was in Bangkok for a series of private meetings with filmmakers exploring co-production possibilities between Hong Kong and Thai cinema, a business context that had nothing to do with Muay Thai, and that in any other circumstances would have concluded without intersection with the fighting community of the city. But Bruce moved through any city the way he moved through any room, with a quality of awareness that made contact with the significant things in that city's landscape natural rather than forced. He found a Muay Thai gym on his third day in the city. He did not find it by searching. He found it by following the sound of people working, which is a sound he has never in his life been able to pass without stopping. He watched for an hour from the doorway. Then he was invited in. Then he trained, carefully and respectfully, with 3 of the gym's fighters under the supervision of the gym's head trainer, a man named Prasong, who had been training fighters for 22 years and who recognized immediately that the man in his gym who weighed 140 pounds and had no background in Muay Thai was doing something with his body that Prasong did not have a precise category for, but that belonged in the same general territory as the thing Prasong had been developing in his own fighters for 2 decades. Prasong introduced Bruce to Aranya on Bruce's 5th day in Bangkok. She was in the gym training when Bruce arrived for his second session. She did not stop training when he arrived. She finished her sequence, finished her work on the pads, then turned and looked at him with the specific evaluative attention of a professional fighter looking at another person's physical presence, and running the same assessment that all professional fighters run on every body they encounter, reading it for information, for the things it reveals and the things it conceals about what it can produce. She spoke to Bruce through Prasong's translation. Her Thai was rapid and direct, and Prasong rendered it into English with the slight compression of a man choosing the most efficient path between 2 languages. She said, "I have heard about Jeet Kune Do. I have heard the things people say about your speed. I'm curious whether those things are accurate." Bruce said, "There is one way to find out." She said, "I know." What followed was 2 days of conversation conducted through Prasong's translation and a shared technical vocabulary that does not require complete linguistic precision to operate, because fighters who are serious about what they do can read each other's bodies across language gaps that would prevent ordinary conversation. They worked on the pads together. They exchanged techniques in the careful way that serious practitioners exchange techniques, not competing but investigating, each person's system providing new information about the other's system when brought into proximity with it. On the second day, Aranya made a proposal. Not a challenge, a proposal. There is a distinction, and she was precise about it. She proposed a sparring session, full contact, governed by a modified set of rules that acknowledged both disciplines. Muay Thai strikes permitted. Jeet Kune Do techniques permitted. No grappling, no groundwork. 3 rounds of 3 minutes each, with Lumpini Stadium as the venue on November 3rd, with an audience from both communities present to witness whatever the session produced. She was specific about her reasoning. "I am 41-0, she said. "I have not yet fought anyone from outside the Muay Thai world. This is a gap in my understanding, not in my record. In my understanding, you represent something I do not yet fully know how to read. I want to know how to read it." Bruce's answer took a night of thought and came in the morning. "I will be there," he said. The preparation in the weeks between that agreement and November 3rd was different for each of them in ways that reveal something about each of their approaches to the discipline they had dedicated themselves to. Aranya prepared by studying. Not film of Bruce, because in 1971 film of Bruce training is not widely available, and what exists does not capture what needs to be captured. She studied the principles. She obtained written material describing Jeet Kune Do's theoretical framework, had it translated, and spent the weeks reading it with the focused analytical attention of a professional who understands that fighting another system begins with understanding what that system believes about itself. She talked to people who had seen Bruce move. She built a model. Bruce prepared differently. He did not build a model of Muay Thai's principles which he already understood from years of study. He built a model of Aranya specifically. He talked at length to Prasong, who knew her better than anyone. He asked not about her techniques, but about her decisions, about the specific moments in a fight when she commits and when she retreats, about the relationship between the jab and the teep, about where in the sequence of her combination the moment of maximum commitment falls and what that commitment produces in the adjacent space she leaves behind it. He did not ask how to defeat her combination. He asked what her combination costs her. Prasong answered that question as honestly as he could, which was honestly enough that Bruce thanked him and went away and spent a week with that single answer, turning it over, finding its implications, the way a locksmith turns a key over in his hands before trying it in a lock he has never encountered. Now November 3rd has arrived, and 1,200 people have arrived with it, and the 4 undercard bouts have run, and the ring is being prepared for what the crowd has been waiting for since they entered the building. Aranya enters first. She walks through the crowd in her Muay Thai shorts and hand wraps, with the composed purposefulness of a fighter who has walked through many crowds toward many rings, and for whom the ritual has long since become indistinguishable from the training that precedes it. She receives the traditional pre-fight blessings with the serious attention of someone who regards them as serious. She performs the Waikru Ram Moy, the pre-fight ritual dance that is not, as Western observers sometimes assume, theatrical, but is a physical and spiritual preparation as real and as functional as the physical warm-up that preceded it. She moves through the ritual with a precision and a depth that the Lumpini crowd recognizes and acknowledges, with the specific murmur reserved for a fighter performing the ritual correctly, not going through its motions, but inhabiting its meaning. Then Bruce Lee enters the stadium. He enters without the ritual because the ritual belongs to a tradition that is not his, and he is not performing authenticity he does not possess. He enters with the same absence of theater that characterizes his entrances everywhere, simply arriving in the space, finding his corner, beginning the quiet internal preparation that does not look like preparation from the outside, but that those close enough to observe the quality of his attention would recognize as the most complete preparation available to him. The crowd's response to his entrance is complicated. There is curiosity. There is skepticism, which in this building from this crowd carries the specific weight of skepticism from people who know what the ring demands, and are looking at a man whose size does not tell them the things they expect a fighter's size to tell them. There is also something else, the intangible quality of attention that certain individuals generate in any room simply by being in it, a quality that does not announce itself and cannot be manufactured, but that the crowd's nervous system detects before its conscious mind has formed an opinion. The referee assigned to this bout is a senior Lumpini official present, because both camps requested the legitimacy that his presence provides, and because what happens in this ring tonight will mean more with him watching it than without him. He gathers both fighters at the center. Modified rules, he states. Muay Thai striking permitted. Kicks, knees, elbows, punches. Jeet Kune Do techniques permitted as agreed. No clinch work beyond the first warning. 3 rounds of 3 minutes. The standard scoring criteria apply where scoring applies. Both fighters nod. They touch hands, not gloves, because neither is wearing them beyond the light open palm wraps that protect knuckles without substantially changing the mechanics of the hand. They return to their corners. The bell rings. Aranya comes out of her corner with the relaxed forward pressure that defines her opening approach in every fight. Not rushing, not hanging back, moving into range at the pace that allows her to read what is in front of her while establishing the specific spatial relationship that her combination requires. She is a reader of opponents, and she has been reading this one since he walked through the stadium entrance, and what she has read has given her information that complicates and enriches the model she built over the preceding weeks. He is not where he appears to be. This is the first thing she understood watching him enter the ring. There is a gap between where his body is in space and where his attention is. A gap that experienced fighters sometimes create deliberately and that some possess naturally, that makes the usual visual processing of an opponent's position less reliable than it should be. She jabs, the jab lands on air, not because Bruce moved far or fast in the conventional sense, but because he is not where the jab was aimed at the moment the jab arrives, and the distance between where he was and where he is small enough that what happened looks less like evasion and more like the target failing to cooperate with a reasonable expectation. She jabs again, trying to establish the data point, trying to confirm the relationship between his defensive response and the position her teep requires him to be in. He is not there again, the crowd murmurs. Aranya's jab does not miss. This is a fact about her that her 41 opponents have each confirmed individually. The jab is the foundation of the combination, and the foundation does not miss, because if the foundation misses, the combination cannot be built on top of it, and a combination that cannot be built is a combination that cannot function. She does not panic. She is 41-0, and she became 41-0 partly through the ability to receive information from a fight that contradicts her preparation and update her approach in real time without the kind of cognitive disruption that contradiction produces in less experienced fighters. She moves, she circles, she is recalibrating. Bruce has not struck yet. He is in the first minute of the first round and he has not initiated contact in any direction. He is moving. The quality of his movement is something that 3 of the fighters in the crowd who have competed at the highest level of their own disciplines will discuss with each other for an hour after the bout ends, trying to find the right language for what they observed. It is not evasive movement. It does not have the quality of someone prioritizing the avoidance of contact. It has the quality of someone gathering information, of someone for whom the first minute of contact is a reading session rather than a fighting session, and who has the stillness and the patience to read without the anxiety of a man who feels the pressure of time. Aranya throws the teep without the jab setup. This is a departure. The teep without the jab is a less precisely calibrated instrument, its targeting less certain, its strategic function less clear. But the jab setup has failed twice, and she is testing whether the teep's failure is dependent on the jab's failure or independent of it. Bruce catches it, not blocks, catches. His left hand receives the kick in the specific way that a person receives something thrown to them, meeting it at the right moment in its path and taking the force out of it in a motion that redirects rather than opposes, that absorbs the energy and dissipates it along a direction that the kick's originator did not intend. The crowd is silent for a full second after this. A caught kick in Muay Thai is not unknown, it is a technique. But the manner of the catch, the timing of it, the quality of the reception, belongs to something other than the Muay Thai vocabulary of catch and counter that the crowd knows how to read. It is something from a different vocabulary, and the crowd's collective intelligence registers this the way an ear trained to one musical tradition registers an interval from a different one. Correct? Surprising? Belonging to a system with its own internal logic. Bruce does not immediately counter. He releases the kick, he steps back, he continues reading. The first round ends with no scoring strikes from either fighter, no damage, no momentum, clearly belonging to one corner. The crowd discusses this in the charged way. Crowds discuss a first round that was not what they expected, but that contained within it the structural information of what is about to follow. Aranya returns to her corner. Prasong is there. He says very little. He is watching her face, which is doing something he has seen it do only a handful of times in 6 years of working with her. It is thinking in a way that the body shows recalculating, restructuring, running the information of the first 3 minutes against the model she prepared, and finding places where the model requires revision. The teep doesn't work as a setup. She tells Prasong in Thai. He doesn't process it the way anyone else processes it. The catch was not a counter. It was a diagnostic. He was reading where my weight goes when I throw it. Prasong nods. He says, "So don't tell him where your weight goes." The bell rings for the second round. Everything changes in the second round. Not because either fighter's physical capacities have changed, but because both fighters have enough information from the first round to move from reading the situation to engaging with it. And engaging with two people who have spent their lives doing this at the highest level available to them is a different thing from reading it. Aranya moves differently. The pattern is gone. Not the technique, the pattern that announces the technique. She is varying the timing of her approaches, varying the spatial setups, removing from her movement the specific rhythmic predictability that she has never needed to address before, because no opponent in 41 fights has been able to read it at the speed required to use the information. Bruce is faster than 41 fights prepared her for, not faster in the broad sense of physical speed, which is a measurable quantity and which she researched and accounted for. Faster in the specific sense of the gap between reading and response, which is not a function of physical speed alone but of something that lives upstream of it. The quality of attention that determines how quickly information becomes available for action. She throws the combination, jab, teep, right, high kick. For the first time in the second round, she commits to the full sequence. The jab connects, a real connection, clean and precise on Bruce's guard. She is already launching the teep as the jab lands. The teep does not find what it is looking for. The story travels Bangkok to Hong Kong, Bangkok to Los Angeles, Bangkok to every city where serious people are asking serious questions about what martial arts mastery actually requires. It travels as multiple versions because all true stories of this kind travel as multiple versions, each version accurate to what its carrier understood of what happened and incomplete in the ways that every understanding of something this complex is inevitably incomplete. What the versions share is this. Aranya Metharom went 41 fights without being made to adapt inside a fight. On November 3, 1971, she was made to adapt. She adapted magnificently. The draw in the official record does not capture the full truth of the 3 rounds that produced it, and it does not need to because the full truth is not the kind of thing that fits inside an official record. The full truth is that 2 people with complete and serious mastery of 2 different systems stood in a ring together and found the places where those systems overlapped and the places where they did not, and found each other at the boundaries of both, and that what they found there was not victory or defeat, but something that required both of them to exist, and that neither of them could have discovered without the other. Bruce Lee left Bangkok the following morning. Aranya fought 3 more times in 1971. She won all 3. Her right side was tender for 2 weeks. She never changed her combination. She never needed to change it again. But she knew now where the space inside it was. Prasong asked her once, months later, whether knowing where the space was made her feel vulnerable. She thought about it for a long time before she answered. No, she said finally. Knowing where the space is means I understand my own combination more completely than I did before. That is not vulnerability. That is the opposite of it. Prasong nodded. That is what serious people take away from serious encounters, he said. Not a record, not a result, understanding. She agreed. And on a Wednesday evening in November in Lumpini Stadium, 2 people who had dedicated everything to understanding stood in a ring together and gave each other exactly that. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything the discipline ever promised it could be, made real for 1,200 witnesses in a building that breathes like a living thing, on a night that none of them would ever entirely finish describing.